My husband called me. I'm divorcing you and I've already sold the house. He laughed. But then, this story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. I was standing in the middle of the conference hall, surrounded by the hum of casual conversations and clinking glasses, when my phone buzzed in my hand. I glanced at the screen, expecting a routine check-in from Tyler, maybe a quick, "How's your trip?" or "When will you be home?" But instead, the words that appeared made my blood turn to ice. "I'm divorcing you. I've already sold the apartment, so you'll need to figure out where you're going to live. Enjoy that." I stared at the message, my fingers tightening around the device. The sheer arrogance, the lack of remorse, the casual cruelty. It was almost laughable. Almost. My jaw clenched as I processed the words, but I refused to react. Not here, not now. If Tyler thought he could break me with a text message, he was about to learn just how wrong he was. My name is Amelia, and up until this moment, I had believed that my 6-year marriage to Tyler was built on trust. Sure, things hadn't always been perfect, but I thought we were partners. I thought we were working toward a future together. Apparently, I had been the only one who felt that way. Looking back, the signs had been there all along. The late nights, the sudden work trips, the secrecy around finances, the dismissive way he brushed off my concerns, always accompanied by a smirk that, in hindsight, reeked of condescension. And now the final blow, his grand betrayal, delivered via text message as if I were nothing more than an afterthought. I took a deep breath, forcing my expression to remain neutral as I excused myself from the conversation I had been half listening to. I needed space, clarity, but most of all, I needed to act. Tyler thought he had outmaneuvered me. What he didn't know, what he had never bothered to pay attention to, was that I had already taken precautions months ago. The apartment he thought he had sold? It was legally mine. Tyler, in his usual arrogance, had never read the refinancing paperwork I had placed in front of him months ago. He had signed them blindly, believing I was simply trying to lower our mortgage payments. What he hadn't realized was that the deed had been transferred to my name alone. I was the sole owner of the apartment. Tyler had just sold a property he had no legal right to sell. And if he had already taken money from the buyer, that meant fraud. A slow, satisfied smile curled at the edges of my lips as I exited the hall and stepped into the quiet of the lobby. Tyler thought he had won. He had no idea what was coming. I stepped outside the conference venue, letting the crisp evening air fill my lungs as I pulled out my phone. I dialed the one person I knew could help me turn this disaster into an opportunity. Chloe, my lawyer and longtime friend. She answered on the second ring. "Amelia, you okay?" Her voice was sharp, alert. She knew something was wrong. I exhaled slowly, my grip on my phone tightening. "Tyler just texted me. He says he's divorcing me and that he's already sold our apartment." There was silence on the other end for a moment before she let out a sharp laugh. "He sold the apartment? Does he not realize he can't do that?" "Apparently not," I said dryly. "He never paid attention to the details when we refinanced. The deed has been in my name alone for months. He had no right to sell it." I could almost hear Chloe smirking. "Oh, Amelia, this is so much better than I expected. He's not just an idiot, he's a criminally negligent idiot. If he took money from the buyer, that's how frauds. This is going to be fun." I felt a twisted sense of satisfaction bubbling inside me. "So, what's our next move?" "First, we notify the buyer that the sale is invalid," Chloe said, her tone shifting into full legal mode. "If Tyler already took their money, he's in deep trouble. Then we draft a formal letter outlining the consequences of his actions. If he tries anything else, we take him to court for fraud. Do you want to serve him before or after I send the letter?" I leaned against the cold stone wall of the building, considering my options. "Let's make him stew for a bit. I want him to think he's on top of the world before we knock him off his pedestal." Chloe chuckled. "I love the way you think. I'll send the letter in the morning. Get some rest, Amelia. This is just the beginning." I hung up feeling an unfamiliar sense of power coursing through me. Tyler thought he had trapped me, that I would crumble and beg him for scraps. He had no idea I'd been playing the long game all along. I spent the rest of my work trip compartmentalizing my emotions, keeping myself composed. The betrayal hurt, But what fueled me now was the sheer satisfaction of watching Tyler dig his own grave. I continued my meetings, smiled at clients, and pretended like nothing had happened. Meanwhile, Chloe was handling everything warm behind the scenes. When I boarded my flight home, I was ready. Okay, Tyler expected to come home to find me broken. He was about to find out just how wrong he was. The apartment felt eerily silent when I stepped inside. His things were still here. His jacket slung carelessly over the back of a chair, his gym bag sitting by the door, his cologne still lingering in the air. The thought made my stomach turn. He had already moved on with Nicole, yet he hadn't even bothered to clear out his things. A cold anger settled in my chest as I set down my suitcase. Then, as if on cue, Tyler stormed in. His face was flushed with rage. His phone clutched in his hand. "What the hell is this?" "Amelia," he snarled, waving his phone at me. Noinam uncrossed my arms, tilting my head. "You'll have to be more specific. Tyler, you're mad about so many things these days." His jaw clenched. "Don't play dumb with me. This letter from your lawyer, telling me I can't sell the apartment? That the sale is invalid? What kind of bullshit is this?" I let a slow, satisfied smile spread across my face. "Oh, you didn't know," I said, feigning innocence. "The apartment has been in my name for months. You signed the deed transfer yourself. Maybe you should start reading things before you put your name on them." For a moment, he said nothing. His face twisted into something ugly, his confidence faltering. "You're lying." I walked over to the kitchen counter, picked up the deed of Rosicos and held it up for him to see. "See for yourself." His iron eyes scanned the document, and I watched as reality set in. His lips parted slightly, the color draining from his face. "You're a real bitch. You know that?" He spat, his voice shaking. I shrugged. "And you're a moron on Tyler. You sold something that didn't belong to you. Do you realize what that means?" I took a step closer, lowering my voice. "Wes said that's fraud. If you already took money from the buyer, you're in even bigger trouble than just losing the apartment." His confidence shattered completely. "You can't do that," he muttered, shaking his head. "I've already made plans with Nicole. We were supposed to—" I cut him off. "Nicole?" I let out a dry laugh. "Oh, honey, I hope she enjoys cheap motels, because after this, that's the only place you'll be able to afford." He ran a hand through his hair, pacing in frustration. "You're blowing this out of proportion. You can't just kick me out." "Actually," I said, leaning against the counter, "I can, and I am. This is my apartment, Tyler. You have until the end of the week to get your things and get out." He glared at me, his hands balling into fists at his sides. "You'll regret this, Amelia." I gave him a mocking smile. "Oh, sweetheart, I've never been more sure of anything in my life." Tyler had spent the next few days spiraling. Nicole, as it turned out, wasn't thrilled about dating a man with no home and no money. When she found out the apartment wasn't his to sell, she dumped him. Publicly. His family turned against him. His mother calling me, begging to understand what had happened. His sister, Becca, took my side, furious that Tyler had tried to destroy me for his own selfish gain. And the best part? Tyler had already spent the deposit money from the fake apartment sale, which meant the buyer was suing him for fraud. By the time our divorce was finalized, he had nothing left. I, on the other hand, I thrived. I redecorated my apartment, turning it into a reflection of Miyakino, free of his influence. I reclaimed my independence, my happiness. Microlife. Tyler had thought that call would want to break me. Instead, it had set me free. And as I sat on my couch, sipping a glass of wine, my phone buzzed with a final text from him. "Amelia, please, we can work something out." I smiled, deleted the message, and turned off my phone. Because for the first time in years, I didn't need him. And that was the greatest victory of all. As I sat in my newly redesigned apartment, bathed in the warm glow of the city lights, I felt a sense of peace settle over me. The space no longer felt like a battlefield of broken promises and betrayal. It was mine, completely and irrevocably mine. Every trace of Tyler had been erased, every reminder of his arrogance and manipulation replaced with something that reflected my own strength and resilience. Tyler, on the other hand, had finally hit rock bottom. Nicole had left him the moment she realized he wasn't the wealthy, successful man he had pretended to be. She had walked out of his life just as easily as she had walked in, leaving him with nothing but mounting legal troubles and an empty bank account. The fraud charges were still hanging over his head, and with no home, no job, and no support system, he was drowning in the very mess he had created. I had heard from mutual acquaintances that he had tried to move in with his sister Becca, but she had slammed the door in his face. Even his mother, who had once defended him blindly, had grown tired of his self-inflicted failures. He was alone, forced to confront the reality of his actions with no one left to bail him out. And yet, despite everything, he still couldn't accept the truth. Late one night, my phone buzzed with an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Amelia," his voice was hoarse, defeated. "Please, I need your help." I took a slow sip of my wine before responding. "Tyler, you made it very clear that I wasn't a part of your life anymore. And honestly, that was the best thing you ever did for me." He let out a shaky breath. "I made a mistake." I smiled to myself, the weight of the past finally lifting. "Yes, you did, but it's not my job to fix it for you." There was a long silence on the other end before he finally whispered, "I don't know what to do." I leaned back against my couch, feeling nothing but satisfaction. "Figure it out, Tyler, just like I had to." I ended the call, blocking the number before he could respond. For too long, I had allowed myself to be the one who held everything together, who sacrificed my own happiness for the sake of someone who never deserved it. But now I was free. This story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about taking back control, about refusing to be a victim, about knowing your worth and never settling for less. Tyler thought he had won when he made that phone call, laughing as he told me to figure out where I was going to live. But in the end, he was the one left with nothing. The lesson? Never underestimate the quiet strength of a woman who has been pushed too far. Because when she finally decides to fight back, she doesn't just win. She rebuilds stronger than ever before. What do you think? Did Tyler get what he deserved? Or should Amelia have been even harsher? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Because trust me, this story isn't over yet.